First contact and invasion. The stars disappeared over New York first. Dr. Elena Reyes stood on the observatory deck at Columbia University, staring through her telescope when the pinpricks of light simply vanished from a perfect circle of night sky. She blinked, adjusted the lens, and looked again. The stars were still gone, replaced by something that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. "Professor Wu," she called, her voice steady despite the cold feeling spreading through her chest. "You need to see this." Within hours, similar reports flooded in from observatories around the world. Perfect circles of nothingness appeared above major cities: London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Cairo. The world's governments scrambled to understand, while civilians alternated between panic and fascination. #StarVoid trended globally as millions posted photos of the empty patches of sky. When dawn broke, the truth became undeniable. Massive ships, each 1 kilometer wide, hovered silently above Earth's major cities. They were perfect obsidian disks that seemed to drink in sunlight. No visible engines, no heat signatures, no radiation. Just silent, impossible vessels defying physics and humanity's understanding of space travel. UN Secretary-General Adeyemi called an emergency session while the world's militaries went on high alert. Fighter jets circled the vessels at a cautious distance. Satellite imagery showed 37 ships in total, positioned strategically across the globe. In the White House Situation Room, President Harlow stared at the screens showing the vessel above Washington, D.C. "Have they made contact?" she asked. General Matthews, a weathered veteran of 3 wars, shook his head. "No communications on any frequency we've tried. No response to visual signals either." "What about weapons systems? Vulnerabilities?" "Nothing we can detect. Our sensors barely register them at all. It's like they're partially out of phase with our reality." The president frowned. "Recommendations." Dr. Kelvin Chen, the nation's foremost xenobiologist, spoke up. "We wait. We observe. We learn. Hostile action could be catastrophic against an intelligence capable of this technology." General Matthews scoffed. "And if they're preparing their own hostile action while we sit on our hands?" The debate became irrelevant 20 minutes later when the ships released their contents. They didn't open in any conventional sense. One moment the vessels were solid. The next, thousands of smaller craft simply passed through their hulls like ghosts through walls. The crafts, sleek, silver pods roughly the size of buses, descended toward Earth in perfect synchronization. "Defensive measures authorized," came the order from governments worldwide. The world's combined military might engage. Missiles streaked skyward. Artillery roared. Fighter jets engaged with everything in their arsenals. And nothing happened. Weapons passed through the pods as if they were holograms, or deflected off invisible shields that gave no sign of strain. Not a single craft was damaged. They continued their silent, methodical descent. The first pod landed in Central Park. New York police established a perimeter, evacuating civilians while SWAT teams took position. Similar scenes played out in parks and open spaces worldwide as the alien crafts touched down. For 23 minutes, nothing happened. The pods sat motionless. The world watched and waited. Then they opened. The beings that emerged looked almost human, if humans were sculpted from liquid mercury. Their bodies flowed and shifted with each movement, maintaining a vaguely humanoid shape, but constantly in fluid motion. They had no distinct facial features, just smooth surfaces where faces should be, occasionally rippling with what might have been expression. In New York, a brave or foolish police officer approached with hands raised in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Welcome to Earth," he said, voice remarkably steady. "We mean you no harm." The being's surface rippled. Then, without warning, it extended an appendage that passed directly through the officer's chest. He didn't bleed. There was no wound. But his eyes went wide with terror before he collapsed, body intact but unmistakably lifeless. Panic erupted. Security forces opened fire. As before, their weapons had no effect. The beings moved through the gathered humans with terrible efficiency, their touch bringing instant death without visible injury. Within hours, millions had fallen worldwide. The beings advanced methodically from their landing sites, unstoppable and seemingly invulnerable. Humanity retreated. Cities were evacuated. Governments collapsed. Military forces regrouped to protected bunkers, desperately seeking some way to fight an enemy that seemed to exist partially outside physical reality. In an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the remnants of the U.S. government gathered with the nation's brightest scientific minds. "They're not killing us in the conventional sense," explained Dr. Rice, who had been airlifted from Columbia University in the chaotic first hours. She projected scans taken from the fallen. Brain activity ceases instantly upon contact, but there's no physical trauma. It's as if they're extracting consciousness itself, harvesting souls. General Matthews asked with grim irony. "More like data," said Dr. Amit Sharma, head of quantum computing at MIT. "Consider this. Perhaps to them, our consciousness is simply information. They may be extracting it for study, or for some purpose we can't comprehend. Doesn't matter why they're killing us," the general growled. "We need to know how to kill them." "We've tried everything in our arsenal," President Harlow said. "Nothing works." A junior researcher named Jason Kim raised his hand tentatively. "Maybe we're thinking about this wrong," he suggested. "We're trying to fight them on their terms, physical weapons against beings that aren't entirely physical." Dr. Rice frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "If they exist partially out of phase with our reality, maybe we need to bring them fully into it or push them fully out." For 3 days, while the alien harvest continued across the globe, the team worked feverishly. They identified a peculiar quantum frequency emitted by the aliens, a vibration that suggested movement between dimensional states. "They're not immune to physics," Dr. Sharma explained to the desperate leadership. "They're just not fully subject to our version of it. But we might be able to force the issue." The plan was elegant in its conception, if not its execution. Earth's remaining satellite network and power grid would be reproposed to generate a global quantum field that would force the aliens to fully materialize in Earth's dimension, making them subject to conventional physics and, hopefully, conventional weapons. There was a terrible catch. The power requirements were immense. Every functioning power plant worldwide would need to be channeled into the effort. Cities that had been spared would go dark. Life support systems and shelters would fail. Millions more would die. "Do it," President Harlow ordered after a moment of heavy silence. The global coordination was unprecedented. Former enemies shared power grids and technical expertise. Engineers worked remotely to reconfigure satellite arrays. Soldiers fought desperate holding actions to defend key infrastructure. 72 hours later, the system was ready. Dr. Rice stood before the makeshift control center, hand poised over the activation switch. "We have no way to know if this will work," she warned. "And even if it does, we still have to find a way to fight them." President Harlow finished. "But first things first. Activate the field." Dr. Rice nodded and pressed the switch. For a single heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world screamed. The counterattack. The quantum harmonizer activated with a silent pulse that rippled through reality itself. Across the globe, the Mercury-like aliens froze in mid-motion. Their fluid bodies solidified as they were forced fully into Earth's dimensional plane. In their command center, the assembled leaders watched live feeds from around the world. The aliens stood immobile, like bizarre statues scattered through empty streets and buildings. "It worked," Dr. Rice breathed, scarcely believing it. "They're locked in our reality." General Matthews was already barking orders. "All strike teams, engage now." "Repeat, all units engage." From hidden positions, military forces emerged, attacking with everything from advanced weapons to improvised tools. The once invulnerable aliens shattered like glass when struck, their bodies crystallizing and crumbling to dust. But the victory was short-lived. The massive ships overhead began to pulse with ominous energy. The quantum field had affected them too, anchoring them firmly in Earth's dimension. And now they were responding. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the ships, targeting power infrastructure worldwide. The quantum harmonizer network faltered as power plants were systematically destroyed. The global defense coordination system began to fail. "We're losing the field," Dr. Sharma shouted over blaring alarms. 10 minutes at most before it collapses completely. "Then we have 10 minutes to take down as many as we can," General Matthews responded grimly. Around the world, a desperate battle raged. Humans fought with newfound hope against an enemy that could finally be hurt. But time was running out, and the massive motherships remained untouched overhead, continuing their systematic destruction of Earth's power grid. In the command center, Jason Kim had been quietly working on a terminal in the corner. He suddenly stood up. "I have an idea," he announced. "The aliens are information gatherers, right? They extract consciousness, data, from humans." "We established that," Dr. Rice said impatiently, eyes fixed on the failing system metrics. "What if we give them more data than they can handle?" Kim suggested. "A quantum virus." The room fell silent. "Explain," President Harlow demanded. "We've reverse-engineered their quantum frequency. We could potentially use our remaining satellite network to transmit a destructive data pattern directly into their ships. Their entire system seems to function on quantum entanglement. If we can corrupt one ship, the effect might cascade through their entire fleet. Like giving them a computer virus," General Matthews asked skeptically. "More like an informational paradox," Kim explained. "A recursive loop of contradictory data that their systems can't resolve." Dr. Sharma's eyes widened. "Gödelian incompleteness at the quantum level. It's brilliant and absolutely insane." "Can you do it?" President Harlow asked. Kim nodded hesitantly. "The theory is sound, but we'd need to transmit from multiple points simultaneously. And someone would need to get much closer to one of the ships to establish the initial quantum link." "A suicide mission," General Matthews stated flatly. "I'll go," Dr. Rice said without hesitation. Everyone turned to stare at her. "I identify them first. Seems fitting I should be the one to try to end this." Despite objections, the plan proceeded with desperate speed. As the quantum field weakened, allowing some aliens to begin regaining their fluid mobility, a small team prepared the necessary equipment. 3 hours later, Dr. Rice found herself in a modified aircraft, flying directly toward the mothership hovering above what remained of New York City. The quantum transmitter hummed beside her, its displays showing the complex mathematical paradox they hoped would destroy the alien network. "Remember," Kim's voice crackled through her headset, "you need to get within 1 kilometer of the hull for our signal to piggyback on their quantum frequency." "I remember," she replied calmly, watching the massive black disk grow larger through her view screen. Anti-aircraft fire from the ground. Humans still fighting, arsed harmlessly through the sky around the ship. At exactly 900 meters from the hull, alarms blared in the cockpit. The ship had detected her. A beam of energy lanced out, narrowly missing the aircraft's wing. "Now or never," she muttered, activating the transmitter. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then a visible shudder ran through the mothership. Its surface rippled like disturbed water. The energy beam targeting her aircraft flickered and died. "It's working," she shouted into her headset. "The ship is responding to the paradox." Across the globe, the effect spread through the quantum-entangled fleet. The alien ships vibrated, their perfect surfaces distorting as impossible calculations corrupted their systems. The smaller craft and the aliens on the ground seized up, their fluid forms crystallizing again, but this time from within. In the command center, Kim watched in awe as the energy signatures of the alien fleet destabilized. "They're collapsing," he reported. the paradoxes cascading through their entire network. Dr. Rice watched through her viewport as the massive ship above her began to fragment. Pieces of it dissolved into particles that scattered like dust in the wind. The smaller alien craft followed, disintegrating as the quantum virus spread. On the ground, the alien invaders simply fell apart, crumbling into fine silver powder that was quickly dispersed by the wind. The entire alien presence on and above Earth dissolved in less than 7 minutes. Dr. Rice circled back toward the rendezvous point, scarcely believing what she was seeing. Cheers erupted through her headset as reports confirmed the same effect worldwide. How? President Harlow asked when they were all gathered again in the command center. How did a mathematical paradox defeat technology so advanced? I think we misunderstood them from the beginning, Dr. Sharma explained. They weren't biological entities using technology. They were technology. Information-based life forms existing across multiple dimensional planes. And information has vulnerabilities, Kim added, especially quantum information, which can't tolerate paradoxes. So humanity defeated an advanced alien species with a logical fallacy, General Matthews asked incredulously. With ingenuity, President Harlow corrected. With the uniquely human ability to think outside established parameters, to create connections that shouldn't exist. In the months that followed, Earth began the long process of rebuilding. The alien dust was collected and studied, revealing technological principles that would advance human science by centuries. The cost had been terrible, nearly 1 billion lives lost to the alien harvest, but humanity had survived. 1 year after the invasion, at a memorial ceremony in the rebuilt United Nations headquarters, President Harlow addressed representatives from every nation. We faced extinction at the hands of beings whose technology we could scarcely comprehend, she said. They saw us as nothing more than data to be collected. They didn't account for human resilience, for our capacity to adapt, to think in ways they couldn't predict. They didn't understand that consciousness isn't just information, it's creativity and determination. It's the ability to face impossible odds and still find a way forward. She looked out at the assembled representatives, her expression solemn but proud. The stars have always watched us. Now they know we're watching back. And should anyone, or anything, threaten our world again, they will find that humanity's greatest weapon isn't found in our arsenals, but in our minds and in our unwavering will to survive. As her words echoed through the hall, a small object in Earth's orbit captured the attention of astronomers worldwide. It was a probe, clearly not of human design, observing from a safe distance. Its quantum signature was unlike the invaders, but unmistakably alien. Earth was being watched again, not by enemies this time, but by others who had noticed humanity's improbable victory. The galaxy had taken notice. Humanity had announced its presence to the stars.